Hey everyone, I'm back with another update. In this episode, I'll cover news related to Venezuela, Minnesota, and Trump accounts. Of course, I'll end with the noteworthy tidbits. Secretary of State Marco Rubio gave testimony on U.S. policy toward Venezuela before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The hearing focused on the Trump administration's military operation earlier in January that removed former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, framing it as a limited law enforcement operation rather than a full scale war or occupation. Rubio defended the action and outlined next steps for Venezuela's transition. He described Venezuela under Maduro as a major security threat, a narco regime serving as a base for U.S. adversaries involved in drug trafficking and allowing discounted oil deals to China to settle debts. He emphasized it was a hemispheric risk close to home, not distant, and the U.S. acted decisively to address it. He stressed no U.S. troops are occupying Venezuela, no occupation occurred, and the goal was to eliminate threats extraditing Maduro for accountability. Rubio urged patience, saying the transition to a stable, prosperous, democratic Venezuela won't be fast or easy. He highlighted early positive moves by Venezuela's new interim leadership and said communications with interim leaders are respectful and productive, with expectations to reopen the U.S. Embassy in Caracas, which has been closed since 2019. Oil is a major leverage point, with the U.S. using sanctions, licensing, and control mechanisms. He admitted no American taxpayer dollars would be spent directly in Venezuela right now and described a phrased approach: stabilization, economic recovery, and eventual democratic elections. Rubio stated the U.S. is not postured for, nor does it intend to expect, additional military action in Venezuela as long as the interim authorities cooperate. However, he didn't fully rule out force if needed to ensure compliance. The hearing was contentious. Senators, including Democrats like Tim Kaine and others, pressed on plans, transparency, support for figures like Maria Corina Machado, and constitutionality. Rand Paul challenged whether the action would be seen as an act of war if done to the U.S., drawing parallels to domestic election disputes. Rubio pushed back by noting Maduro wasn't legitimately elected and was an indicted criminal. Other moments included Rubio rejecting claims of torture, clarifying arrests targeted gang members, and expressing openness to regime change in places like Cuba. Overall, Rubio portrayed the operation as a success so far, leading to a potentially more cooperative Venezuela aligned with U.S. interests, and called for time to let reforms take hold. In other Venezuela-related news, President Trump announced all commercial airspace in Venezuela is opening, and U.S. citizens will be able to travel there safely. On to Minnesota news. The federal agents involved in the shooting of Alex Preddy were placed on administrative leave during the investigation, and 16 anti-ICE agitators were arrested for assaulting law enforcement, including the bananas and rice Somali girl. If you don't know who I'm talking about, it's worth a quick internet search. Border Czar Tom Homan struck an agreement with Minnesota Democrat officials to hand over public safety threat illegal aliens to ICE instead of releasing them back out onto the streets, so county jails will now notify ICE to transfer these illegals directly into ICE custody. This agreement has already allowed for a decrease in ICE and CBP presence in Minnesota, but Homan said there are still some targets left to find. Minnesota police chiefs confirmed they will respond to 911 calls and guard federal immigration agents from agitators if protesters turn violent, and I do want to point out that federal agents have arrested tens of thousands of illegals in other states with hardly any issue because law enforcement is working with them. Representative Ilhan Omar was caught deleting evidence of fraud after Benny Johnson exposed her winery surged in value from almost $0 to $5 million in 1 year, despite not having a physical location or wine available for purchase, with the website, archives, and listings all deleted. And Omar is blaming President Trump for the apple cider vinegar incident. Senator Amy Klobuchar is running for governor of Minnesota to replace Walz, and there's a rumor that Walz may have struck an insider deal to replace Klobuchar. Governor Walz said he's never seeking elected office again, but if he struck an insider deal to be appointed to a Senate seat, then technically his statement is true. It's probably just a rumor, but I figured I'd include the theory just for fun, especially since everything is so unpredictable lately. On to Trump accounts. Nicki Minaj is now contributing to tax advantaged Trump accounts to help start investments for young Americans, and Steak and Shake pledged a $1,000 match to the Trump accounts for their employees. President Trump announced that dozens of other employers are contributing to Trump accounts as well, and Erica Kirk said Turning Point USA will do a dollar for dollar match into the accounts for TPUSA employees' newborn children to continue Charlie's support of families. It was confirmed that through the Trump accounts, by the age of 18, $303,800 can be accrued, and $1.1 million can be accrued by the age of 28. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that a $1,000 deposit can grow to $500,000 by retirement, and he revealed 1 million families have signed up for the Trump accounts so far this week, with 25 million being eligible. Now it's time for the noteworthy tidbits, which are brought to you today by Zevo Life. Let me tell you about them quick. Looking for a game-changing way to improve your health? Zevo Life is the world's most nutrient-dense whole plant, packed with over 50% plant protein, essential amino acids, fiber, and antioxidants. Harnessing the best nature has to offer, Zevo Life nourishes your body while driving your performance, vitality, and overall well-being. Each serving is a concentrated source of clean, well-balanced nutrition designed to support modern lifestyles, and just 1 teaspoon a day supports your gut, boosts energy, and promotes healthier skin and hair. It's no wonder that it's receiving rave 5-star reviews. Step into a healthier future with a 30% discount and a 30-day risk-free guarantee by visiting zivo.life and using my promo code. To support my show and to receive 30% off your entire order, enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. The FBI carried out a search warrant at an election office in Fulton County, Georgia, as part of an investigation into 2020 election fraud. National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard was on scene, and items seized include ballots, computers, phones, and documents. First Lady Melania rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, an event that was tied to the promotion and celebration of her documentary. She also delivered remarks and was presented a medallion by the New York Stock Exchange president during the event. Senate Majority Leader John Thune promised to bring the SAVE Act to a floor vote, and the House added the requirement of photo ID to vote to the act. Oregon was caught with 800,000 ineligible voters on their rolls, which are now being purged after a Judicial Watch lawsuit. President Trump nominated Colin McDonald to serve as the first ever Assistant Attorney General for National Fraud Enforcement, which is the new division out of the Department of Justice. McDonald is a senior federal prosecutor in Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's inner circle. A group of GOP lawmakers pushed legislation to freeze foreign aid to any country that refuses to assist in returning fraudulently stolen tax dollars, and it would require SNAP data to be submitted to the USDA to detect fraud. President Trump has an armada of ships near Iran and is considering strikes against the Iranian regime after they slaughtered their own people. He also wants them to stop their nuclear activity, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio banned senior Iranian officials and their family from being in the United States. After signing an executive order allowing the feds to rebuild the Los Angeles area after the wildfires, President Trump said that EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin will oversee the permits. Trump also said that everyone gets immediate approval and a 10% bonus for all the suffering they've been caused. U.S. steel production now exceeds Japan for the first time in nearly 30 years. According to an RMG poll, Americans support President Trump's proposed Greenland deal by 28 points. President Trump decertified all aircraft made in Canada and announced a 50% tariff on Canada until they stop refusing to certify Gulfstream craft. The Senate GOP struck a deal with the White House to pass a law fully banning sanctuary cities through making it a federal crime, which would mean governors and mayors could be arrested for protecting illegal aliens. President Trump said he had a very productive telephone conversation with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, with much of that conversation being focused on the border, stopping drug trafficking, and trade. Trump said they will speak again soon and ultimately will set up meetings in our respective countries. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon filed to block Massachusetts' restrictive handgun ban as unconstitutional. First Lady Melania Trump is in active contact to free and reunify children in the Russia-Ukraine war. Congressman Tim Burchett's bill to defund the Taliban and other terrorists passed the Senate committee and headed for a floor vote. Oklahoma Democrat Representative A.J. Pittman resigned after pleading guilty to felony fraud charges. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. revealed he has commissioned over 100 studies into the root cause and solutions to autism in American children. President Trump signed an executive order to help millions of Americans break their addiction to drugs, called the Great American Recovery Initiative. Indiana lawmakers approved a bill that recognizes only two genders, requires school bathrooms and locker rooms be separated by sex, requires prisoners to be incarcerated based on sex, and mandates birth certificates list biological sex. President Trump signed an executive order declaring a national emergency over Cuba, preparing tariffs on any country supplying oil to Cuba, and he said Cuba is likely to fall soon. Lastly, President Trump and his sons are suing the IRS and Treasury for $10 billion over the leaking of his tax records. That's all I have for today. I'll be back with another update soon. Until then, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast, and follow me on Instagram and X at Shades of Jade Pod. Thank you for listening and have a great day.